Welcome back. Mike Huckabee is a man of faith who makes no apologies for his beliefs. In part 5 of our exclusive interview, we talk about some very contentious social issues, and we begin with those disturbing Planned Parenthood videos.
I was appalled, sickened by it. The words were bad enough, but the context made it even more chilling. Here is a doctor casually chomping on her salad, fork in hand, wine glass in another, talking about how they were careful not to crush the thorax because it might damage the liver, the heart, and the kidneys that they could use for organ harvest and sell those organs. Instead, they would crush the lower body extremities and they would crush the head. They were careful not to crush the most valuable parts, but describing essentially the trafficking of human body parts. If anybody can watch that and not turn away in disgust, that person has a seared conscience. They have lost the capacity for any sense of moral outrage. God help them. As president, there would be no funding for Planned Parenthood. None. $540 million, and they justify saying it's for women's health. There's nothing that they do, which is very little for women's health, that couldn't be done by better and more responsible providers rather than these butchers who go out there and justify and defend the slaughter of children and the selling of their parts. And it's time for us to get honest. Let's end this scourge of abortion. 55 million unborn children have died in what ought to be the safest place in the world, their mother's womb. And I think that we, as a culture, as a civilization, need to come to grips with the evil of this practice, and we need to end it.
More family issues, specifically marriage. The Supreme Court ruling, you've been quoted as saying, pastors and others need to be prepared to engage in civil disobedience.
Yes.
Tell me what you mean, and tell me, do you think it's going to come down to the federal government ordering pastors to conduct same-sex weddings?
It's headed that direction. When people say, oh no, that's not going to happen. It already is happening at the lead-up when bakers, photographers, t-shirt makers, florists, caterers are told that they have to participate in something that violates their conscience and their biblical orthodoxy. Then it's not very far till we start telling schools you can't be accredited if you don't support the notion of same-sex marriage, and if you won't include that in your curriculum. It means to a college you can't get a Pell Grant for your students. You're not going to get any assistance for your campus. It means to adoption agencies. Imagine what happens to hospitals if they can't be accredited hospitals because no government agency will officially give their approval because they don't practice a support for same-sex marriage. Churches losing tax-exempt status. Economic terrorism already being applied to people across America. Fines of $135,000 to a wedding cake maker for the simple just denial of making a wedding cake for a same-sex couple. JD, here's what we have to finally do is elect a president who says the Supreme Court's not the supreme being. And they're not even the supreme branch. They're Supreme Court, but they're not above the other two branches of government. There is no legislation that has ever passed Congress, signed by a president, that authorizes same-sex marriage, and there's nothing in the Constitution. Justice Kennedy reached out and made up some rights, like intimacy and spirituality. That's not constitutional.
Along those lines, then, should Anthony Kennedy be impeached?
Should never have been appointed, perhaps. Whether he should be impeached, he should be ignored. I think we're missing something here. I hear people say, well, there's nothing we can do. It's the law of the land. We're just now bound by it. No, we're not. My gosh, what if Abraham Lincoln had said, well, Dred Scott passed, black people aren't real people, they're not full people, therefore there's nothing we can do. That's the law of the land. What if he had done that? I mean, does anybody think that would have been the proper course for Abraham Lincoln to have taken as it related to the dignity, the worth, and the value of people of color? My God, nobody in this country says that. He decided that Dred Scott was morally and unconstitutionally a wrong decision of the court, and he ignored it. When is the president going to have the courage to say that until the elected people's representatives vote for it and a president signs it and agrees to enforce it, the Supreme Court cannot make up a law? They don't have that power. If they do have that power, and there is no check and balance to that power, then let's remember the words of Jefferson, who told us that that kind of unchecked power on the part of the judiciary would be judicial tyranny. And that's what we've surrendered to, and it's fundamentally wrong and unconstitutional.
A programming reminder is in order here. You can see more of that exclusive interview with Mike Huckabee in a 30-minute Prime special entitled A Conversation with Mike Huckabee. It premieres Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern, high noon Pacific time, right here on Newsmax TV.